Britain is obsessed with universities. We've increased the number of people going to them dramatically, from under 15% of people born in the late 1960s to around 43% of the most recent school leavers. Part of this is because we got a load of people to take technical qualifications they'd never have touched before by moving them into the university system. That's part of the reason why the graduate wage premium has held up so well. Universities have diversified to meet employers' needs. But higher education is still a minority pursuit. And the most important innovation for the majority who don't go to university in England isn't quite working out. Since last year, larger businesses with a payroll of more than £3 million have paid a tax, the apprenticeship levy. Businesses can, in effect, get the money back so long as they spend it on apprenticeships. And the money's quite big. They can recoup £3,000 for a care worker's training or £27,000 for an aerospace engineer. The apprentice, of course, also doesn't pay fees but earns a wage. Since the levy kicked in, though, the number of people starting apprenticeships has dropped. There's another issue too. In the 6 months to last January, 128,000 people under the age of 25 started apprenticeships. Of these, though, only 6,600 were for qualifications above an A-level. It remains a system largely built to deliver intermediate skills. Now, those are important, and the pipeline of high-end apprenticeships is growing. There's a decent number of really good apprenticeships with proven track records, particularly in engineering. But we aren't nearly there yet. Universities have few rival pipelines to well-qualified jobs in our service-heavy economy.
Chris Cook. Well, I'm joined now by Olly Boyland, who plans to study politics at university after his gap year, and Bethany Barnes, who turned down offers of a place at university to pursue instead a degree apprenticeship with Barclays. Good evening to you both. Bethany, what were the overriding things that guided your decision not to go to university?
So for me, it was largely that actually when I looked at the university proposition, I'm a dyslexic as well, actually. So for me, the minimal teaching time per week didn't really reflect what I was paying in tuition fees. And when I found the Barclays programme, that enabled me to earn while I learnt, work on the job. I got those practical skills as well as my academics, but it was applied academics. So I wasn't just learning something in abstract, it was truly bringing the whole picture together.
But is there something to be said for learning in abstract and actually what a university can give you as a person as you grow, or were you more focused?
I think for me, I was quite focused, but I think there's both arguments to each side. For some people, university may be the route. For others, a degree apprenticeship may be more suited.
The question of money, obviously you mentioned the idea of debt, must have played a part. You presumably had worked out roughly how much you were going to be owing at the end of your degree.
Yes, my kind of debt range would have been around £60,000, which is about average. So that's quite a significant figure to be leaving university with. So for me, I've come out with not a penny of debt. And that feeling to be able to start my career with no debt at all is something that I just, can't thank Barclays enough for.
Well, Olly, just looking at the decisions that you're making, because you've got a number of offers, you're going to take a break for a bit and think about it. But what's governed your decision to go to university?
Well, for me, I felt, to be honest, that I was kind of lacking the right information, the information that you need to kind of make a decision properly. My sixth form college, well, from my experience, has barely even mentioned the alternatives to university. It seemed to be, to me, either go to university or go straight into the world of work. Apprenticeships weren't really a thing that were brought up. And not only that, there's the culture around apprenticeships, and it's kind of viewed, obviously very wrongly, it's seen that apprenticeships are somehow inferior to a university
Well,
education.
that's interesting, because in this survey by Barclays, it said that one of the reasons that a lot of young people do go to university is pressure from parents to go to university rather than take an apprenticeship. And
also, you were talking about the debt point earlier. What we actually see with apprenticeships is the minimum wage for an apprenticeship is only £3.50 an hour. So if you don't have that support from your parents, if you don't have somewhere to live, £3.50 an hour, that's not going to get you somewhere to live, something to eat. So often, maintenance loans that are available when you take a university education, that's actually a better option for you to live on.
So what was it the idea of the subject you wanted to study, the atmosphere of going to university, or actually this idea that actually there might be a premium at the end and the kind of job you could get? What governed the decision?
I mean, there's definitely an idea about the atmosphere of university. I think for people that are taking an apprenticeship, one of the biggest things is the deal of missing out of 3 years of what is meant to be kind of the best years of your life, allegedly. But also it's kind of the received knowledge that going to university, and this is obviously also wrong, that going to university will get you an increased salary, a better job at the end of the day. And that's just, frankly, the lack of education that we've received, that students in the UK receive about apprenticeships.
Well, I was going to ask you about that, because you said that there was very little. It was either going to university or working. And so there wasn't, apprenticeships weren't given any kind of status or place in terms of careers guidance at school. But you do know they exist. But of course, they're so variable. I mean, presumably it's very hard to navigate your way around what's available anyway.
Yeah, that's another point. You look at UCAS, which is a very streamlined, very organised way to kind of apply to university. The teachers are very adept in teaching students how to write a personal statement. Teachers barely have any knowledge of how to apply for apprenticeships. It's a much more difficult process to navigate than UCAS. And this is just kind of one of the problems of applying for
Well, let's talk about that a bit more now, because I'm joined also by Chris Belfield, research economist at the Institute for Fiscal Studies, who studies the higher education system, Nick Linford, editor of FE Week, the Further Education Trade magazine, and Nick Belfield, who is the director of the Higher Education Policy Institute, an independent think tank. We asked more than 24 universities and bodies who represent all universities to come on the programme tonight, but nobody was available. So we're very much delighted to have you here. Look, let's just pick up straight away, Chris Belfield, on the idea that actually you don't know what you're getting when you're getting an apprenticeship, and you don't know what you're getting in terms of your wage, you don't know what you're getting at the end of it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The apprenticeships there's been lots of reforms in the system recently, so it's very difficult to know what the new apprenticeships are going to be. There's very little research about the long-term impacts of the apprenticeships on your future earnings. You compare that to higher education, where there's lots of research done around this, and the latest evidence suggests that acquiring a degree on average increases your earnings by around £200,000 over your life cycle.
But are you surprised or not by the Barclays survey that, you know, we're talking about half?
I mean, I was surprised. I think this figure is that degrees increase your earnings by £200,000 on average over your life cycle. Obviously, not all degrees are the same. Some research we did recently showed the big variation in those returns, that if you study economics, the returns might be 25% higher than if you study English. If you study at a Russell Group university, the returns are about 10% higher than if you study at an average university. And so clearly not everyone is going to benefit from that large average return.
But that whole question of when you're carrying debt at 6%.
Can I just correct a couple of things? You said there was no one here who works with universities. My name's Nick Hillman, and I work for the Higher Education Policy Institute, and we work with nearly every university up and down the UK.
What I really meant was we represent the vice chancellors.
Yeah, and we do a survey every year that has 30 times as many people as the Barclays survey in it.
Yeah.
Students, and only 5% of them tell us they wish they had made a different choice and were not studying in higher education. So there's a lot of spin around today's survey, but it doesn't
reflect... But wait a minute, 5 from 50, I mean...
Yeah, so 5%, and we have 14,000 students in our survey, and we've been doing it for about 12 years. So very few people who go to higher education regret it, and most people who come out of university at the other end have fantastic labour market opportunities. And even Bethany here, who's talking about...
That's quite interesting, because, I mean, anecdotally, I know many that don't have the right opportunities.
Yeah, but it's a false dichotomy, because Bethany and I were chatting before, and Bethany has just achieved a degree through Anglia Ruskin University. So the idea that...
But it's an apprenticeship degree.
But it's a degree. It's a level of higher education.
But what we're saying, what we're talking about here is a discussion, a big decision in young people's lives, whether they go to higher education and carry perhaps debt, 60,000, or they do that through an apprenticeship.
But as Olly said, it's not a debt like any other form of debt. It's a little bit of extra income tax you pay throughout your life. Now, there are some fantastic, as Chris Cook's report said, there are some fantastic degree-level apprenticeships. But very often apprenticeships train you for a job that may not exist in 10 or 15 or 20 years' time. And a really good quality degree will deliver transferable skills that will give you a lifetime graduate earnings premium.
Well, Nick Linford, coming to you, the apprenticeships are kind of for one job and one job only. You would dispute that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a really exciting time in the apprenticeship world at the moment, of huge reform, and the whole scheme has been kind of thrown up in the air, and employers have been redesigning it, and we've got a completely whole new suite, all the way from master level 7, all the way down to level 2.
But that is very much the minimum amount. I mean, the minimum amount of high-level apprenticeship degrees are very small. And as Olly would say there, trying to navigate your way around what's available in apprenticeships is impossible.
Sure, let's just be clear though. There were very few, if any, available to deliver in terms of higher level. So the government are talking about a 1,000% increase, but of course, if you start from a zero number, then it's very easy to get a massive percentage increase. The point is, with the complete redesign, we now have hundreds of new apprenticeship schemes.
For higher academic level,
at
we're
level
talking
4,
about.
5, 6 and 7, so at degree level, that are only now just coming on stream. And I think the key point to make here, in a sense, is that now nearly all universities in the last 12 months have signed up to the government. They've applied through an official process to deliver apprenticeships. It's a game changer, complete game changer for the apprenticeship scheme.
Does it then mean that apprenticeships will be seen differently? You've just said that it's not really transferable skills. You're going to have to eat that, aren't you, when the universities are going to be delivering more of them?
Well, as I say, for some people, apprenticeships are fantastic, but the numbers are falling, as Chris's report showed. And very often this debate is about, I want other people to do apprenticeships. Very often people don't recommend them for their own children, and their own children, like Olly, are on their way to university. So you know, but for some people they work.
Yeah.
I mean, for myself, I come from a different background. So my mother was actually a university lecturer, and she fully supported me to go through a degree apprenticeship route because she thought it was a much more practical way, and actually, because of the transferable skills.
Interesting, because what you're just saying is that the skills aren't as transferable as if you take a higher education course, and you're saying they are.
I think they are, because a wide variety of apprentices, even in terms of Berkeley's offering, we have such a huge amount there that actually we can offer, and that are there for future skills
Olly.
alignment.
I was just going to say that on the debt point, people say that debt is a massive thing that makes students choose not to go to university, especially since the maintenance grant was abolished. But what we see is the debate around debt that's actually deterring people. It is not a debt, as Nick touched on earlier. It's not a debt as any other debt is. The vast majority of people do not pay off their student debt in full. And if you're not earning over a certain threshold, it's about £25,000, then you don't pay it back, and it's written off after a certain period. So I think it's more the debate around debt and kind of the idea that you're saddled with £60,000.
But somebody's losing out. I mean, now we've talked really about what the value is to individuals. Let's talk about the value to the taxpayer and the value to society. The debt is still there. If the debt's not paid back, the taxpayer's picking it up.
Well, sure, but I'd just like, if I may, to address the issue of the falling numbers on apprenticeships in Chris's package and referred to by Nick. This is something the government is not panicking about. The government are saying, and I agree with them, that it was to be expected. Last May, completely new way of funding apprenticeships, and employers have got 24 months to decide how to use the money, at the same time as all of these new schemes, as we've said, including the degree level schemes, are coming on board. So I think the apprenticeship scheme is in its infancy, the new, very exciting scheme. And one of the most important things, I think, which isn't being talked about, is that from May of last year, you cannot do an apprenticeship unless your employer gives you equivalent to a day a week in training during contract hours. It's a huge amount of training.
It's better for the taxpayer.
Much better.
So the higher education system is expensive. It costs about £17 billion a year to provide higher education, and some of that's repaid in these student loans, but it's still going to cost the government about £8 billion. But that's not all the effect on the taxpayer there is of higher education. If higher education increases average wages, then graduates pay more tax and receive less in benefits. So it's important to account for the wider benefits of higher education to the exchequer, but also in terms of wider society, potentially reduced crime rates and improved health.
It is interesting that in the country that we all think of being the country of the great apprenticeships, which is Germany, higher level apprenticeships, that actually it's flipping now for the first time, that there's just marginally more people going to university than there are taking higher level apprenticeships.
They've held down student numbers historically in Germany, and German universities have been, you know, it's been a much smaller thing to Germany, and the numbers are changing. They are boosting their universities. But I think what we need, in terms of the wider question, let's look at employers. You know, who are employers recruiting? Yes, they are recruiting some apprentices. I've done some research now, I've tried to find out whether Barclays are taking on more graduates and more apprentices. They don't publish any of the figures, but it looks pretty clear from their website they take on a lot more graduates than they do apprentices. So even the employers who are celebrating apprentices, they're still recruiting a lot of graduates and paying them very often more than they're paying the apprentices.
There's always going to be need, isn't there, Nick Linford, for a mix? I mean, there's always going to be need for the philosophers, the social scientists, the geographers, and so forth. There's going to always be a mix.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think it's about finding the right balance, and it's about finding opportunities amongst that balance for different people with different needs. The key point for me is there's a complete imbalance at the moment. And I think that there will be very many more apprenticeships. I think we will see the curve that's doing this at the moment very quickly go upwards as we introduce many more schemes. Not just, but certainly including at level 4, 5, 6 and 7, all the way up to, I mean, even we hear of masters in degrees in management. I mean, I'm fairly uncomfortable perhaps about apprenticeships at that level in management, but it's a booming industry right now in an area that perhaps we weren't expecting. So lots of opportunities in apprenticeships in a way that I think is really exciting.
Thank you all very much indeed.